Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You caught me mid-sip. That doesn't matter because you caught me, and that's all that matters. It is our weekly sports show, TMG Takes the Field. I'm the 38th favorite dad in the family community, Papa West, Jacob West, here to talk about a pretty exciting week, very exciting week. Everything is excited in the world of Papa West. Kevin James Poss, man who just got married earlier this last month. It's December, saying, "Hey, buddy, Kevin, how is it going?" Um, no, I'm not here to talk to one of my best friends, Kevin Poss. I'm here to talk to everybody. But when you comment, 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna put your comment on the board or on the little screen so everyone can see. So comment wisely, I guess. Yeah, comment wisely. But yeah, it is a very interesting week to talk about sports. MLB free agency has really heated up. There have been several big signings that we will talk about. College football, huge coaching carousel going on right now. Of course, this is the time where a lot of teams' season is done. Most of the regular season is done. There are still some regular season games going on this Saturday, but most of our conference championship games will be going on. And then after that, we will start bowl season, everybody's favorite time of the year, when we just put random teams against each other for absolutely no reason. Up until the end of December, beginning of January, where we take the four best teams in college football and put them in a little tournament to see who is the best team. The reason I do quotation marks is because they're missing several teams that should actually be in there. But again, we'll talk about that here pretty soon. But first, we're going to talk about breaking news. Again, this is where we kind of talk about everything going on with the NFL. And not much. Biggest thing is injuries. With a 17-week-long season, football is very demanding on the body. There are going to be some injuries out there. Buccaneers have said that Antonio Brown is likely to miss at least 2 more weeks due to injuries that he has taken or that he is facing. The Seahawks, they have had really bad luck with their running back room. Chris Carson, their starting running back, really hasn't played this year. I think he played the first couple games, but he's been out for most of the year. They have signed Adrian Peterson to their practice squad. So very excited to see what is going on, or hopefully see him get some playing time. He was amazing when he played with the Vikings, and then just you get older, you don't make great choices. He definitely hasn't had as good of a career since he left Minnesota, but you do wish the best for him. Other news, we did have 2 really big injuries in the form of running backs over the weekend. Christian McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook both were injured in the game in their respective games this Sunday. Christian McCaffrey, I believe it was an ankle issue. He has been ruled out for the remainder of the season. So for everybody who wasted your first overall pick on him, I'm sorry. You have several more games left, and you don't have him anymore. And he will not be coming back. Dalvin Cook, someone else that a lot of people use their number 1 overall pick on. I'm not going to say is a waste because he's played a little bit more this season. Suffered a dislocated shoulder in this week's game. Now, that's an interesting injury because dislocated shoulder isn't necessarily a bad injury. It's, of course, is going to be painful. Is going to require a little bit of time to heal, but not much. And he's also a running back, so I'm kidding. I'm not referring to him as saying, "Hey, you don't need to recover. Just suck it up." I'm not saying that. But definitely in fantasy football, pick up Chuba Hubbard and Anthony Madison or Alexander Madison. Chuba Hubbard is a Panther. Alexander Madison is a Viking. They're going to be getting a lot more carries. There's also another guy who plays for the Panthers. I can't think of his name off the top of my head because I did not pick him up in fantasy. But he will definitely be splitting with Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard I picked up whenever Christian McCaffrey had his first injury. Also, I picked up Alexander Madison after Dalvin Cook had his first injury of the season. So needless to say, if you use your first overall pick for either Dalvin Cook or Christian McCaffrey, it might not have been the best play. Hindsight's 2020, though. I know in my leagues, I'm in several. Dalvin Cook was one of my go-to guys. I picked first in at least two, and so I picked him up for both of those. There was one where I picked second, and the person before me picked up Derrick Henry, and so I picked up Christian McCaffrey. And then it was right when he got put on the injured reserve cup last month, I believe, or it was October. I had someone trade me Mike Williams of the Chargers for him. This was like right after he got put on IR. I'm like, I can use Mike Williams immediately. You're not going to have McCaffrey for at least 3 weeks. Sounds like an easy trade to me. And it ended up working out really well because he missed those 3 weeks. And then also, as we know, he's not playing anymore. That's really it as far as NFL goes. Next, we're going to move on to NBA basketball. A couple games still going on right now. Mavericks are beating the Pelicans 116-87. They're in the fourth quarter. Also in the fourth quarter, 76ers and Celtics are tied at 82 apiece. The Thunder are beating the Rockets 85-76, and then just finishing the third, about to start the fourth, but haven't started fourth yet. The Bucks are beating the Hornets 97-95. I also just realized I call them quarters. In basketball, they're called periods. There's really no difference between the two, but you have to use the proper vernacular when bringing it up. Not a lot of news as far as NBA goes. No big trades have happened yet for some interesting names that some people might want to know. But we will go ahead and talk about standings. So right now in the East, Brooklyn is number 1 at 15-6. Second and third is Chicago and Washington, both at 14-8. Milwaukee is fourth at 13-8. Miami is fifth at 13-9. Charlotte is 13-10. Cleveland and Atlanta are both 12-10. New York and Boston 11-10, along with Philadelphia at 11-10. Toronto is at 9-13. Indiana is at 9-15. Orlando is at 5-18, and Detroit is at 4-17. So right now, the way it sits, we'd be looking at Brooklyn, Chicago, Washington, Milwaukee, Miami, Charlotte, Cleveland, and Atlanta making the playoffs. New York, Boston, and Philadelphia just on the outside looking in. As far as the Western Conference goes, tied for first place, both Phoenix Suns and Golden State Warriors are at 18-3. The Utah Jazz are in third at 14-7. Dallas Mavericks are at 10-9. Memphis Grizzlies and Los Angeles Clippers are at 11-10. The Lakers at 7 at 12-11. Portland Trailblazers and Minnesota Timberwolves are at 11-11. Denver right behind at 10-11. Sacramento at 8-14. San Antonio at 6-13. Oklahoma City at 6-14. The New Orleans Pelicans 6-17. And the Houston Rockets have won a couple more games since last time we talked. They're at 4-16. So right now we're seeing Phoenix, Golden State, Utah, Dallas, Memphis, the Clippers, the Lakers, and the Trailblazers in the playoffs. Minnesota and Denver just on the outside looking in. Again, that's really it. There's some injuries, but that's really it. As far as news in the NBA, definitely some players we're looking at might be traded soon. But we will see later on down the road. Next, we are going to be talking about Major League Baseball. There have been some big signings recently, stuff to make you excited about the upcoming years, stuff to make you upset because your team is not doing anything. And I will have everything. I have a tracker that I am just scrolling down to find the right date. I'm just going to start off at November 16th. So there are going to be a couple that we should have gone over that we might go over that I just skipped over while looking. This is based off of ESPN's free agency tracker. So as of November 16th, just kind of the big free agency things that have happened. The Angels signed right-hand pitcher Noah Syndergaard, lockdown ace for the Mets, is now going to Los Angeles to play for the Angels. The Astros did re-sign Justin Verlander to a one-year, $25 million contract. The Giants retained first baseman Brandon Belt. The Brewers picked up catcher Pedro Severino. The Giants keep pitcher Anthony DeSalfani. I butchered your last name. I'm sorry. And then the Angels signed left-handed pitcher Aaron Loop. Cardinals signed left-handed pitcher Steven Matz. White Sox signed right-handed pitcher Kevin Grayman. Rays signed shortstop Wander Franco. I saw SS and I'm like, I have no idea what this means because I'm weird. Mets signed outfielder Nick Plummer. Red Sox sign right-handed pitcher Michael Wacha. Mets sign Starling Marte and Eduardo Escobar. Mariners trade Adam Frazier to the Padres for Raymond Kerr and Corey Rozier. Astros sign reliever Hector Neris. Marlins sign outfielder Avisail Garcia. And they are working on an extension for Sandy Alcantara. First, like kind of the Noah Syndergaard, I consider big news. So this is gonna be the next big news. The Tampa Bay Rays add two-time Cy Young winner Corey Kluber to a one-year deal, adding to that really scary bullpen. So they're going to be fun to watch next couple of years, unless your favorite team plays in that division. Twin star Byron Buxton. He's also a center fielder, by the way. The Blue Jays signed Kevin Gausman. The Rangers, we'll be talking about them soon, signed Marcus Semien and John Gray. Marlins have a trade with the Pirates. They picked up Golden Glove catcher Jacob Stallings. They sent over pitchers Zachary Thompson and then some prospects Kyle Nicholas and Connor Scott. Braves signed reliever Kirby Yates. Next, very big news. Probably the reason why the Mets didn't really need Syndergaard, because they just did a signed Max Scherzer to a mega deal. That's what it says on there. 3-year, $130 million contract. So a lot of money right there. Rangers give a 10-year deal to superstar shortstop Corey Seager. So if you're a Ranger fan, you're excited about that. The Yankees did re-sign several players, Gio Urshela, Domingo Germán, and Lucas Luetge. The Baltimore Orioles signed Rougned Odor, second baseman who played for the Yankees. Marlins made a trade with the Rays, not the Jays, They picked up third baseman Joey Wendell and are sending to Tampa Bay Cameron Missner, who is an outfielder and third base prospect. Cubs sign catcher Yan Gomez and outfielder Clint Frazier. Red Sox sign left-handed pitcher James Paxton. The Angels re-signed right-handed pitcher Raciel Iglesias. Tigers land shortstop Javier Baez. Another really good pick. Dodgers are expected to re-sign Chris Taylor. Chicago Cubs signed Marcus Stroman. That is it for right now. Again, a lot of big names happening. Corey Seager, Max Scherzer, definitely the bigger names there. What happened to the Dodgers? They lost two good players. They still have a really good team around them, but kind of losing your team there. I like how the Nationals just got rid of their team. As far as everybody's favorite lockout goes, there's no news on if the lockout will happen. Not next season, but it'll be the season after is when the current CBA agreement expires. The article I was on just closed on me. Talks end after 7 minutes between the two sides. Not really sure how they went, but it is looking like a lockout is imminent, which is not exciting. So we will definitely have a lot more news if Major League Baseball will take a break like they do every now and again. Which again, last time there was a big lockout that really affected the season would have been like 1994, I believe it was. So hopefully the two sides can come to an agreement and not have a huge lockout because nobody wants that. Next, we're going to move on to soccer. Last time we talked, we were kind of breaking down round 1 of the MLS playoffs. There have been a couple games for round number 2. Or round number 2, I actually believe, is finished. So as far as round number 2 goes, on Thanksgiving Day, the Colorado Rapids, number 1 seed in the West, played the Portland Timbers. Portland did come out on top 1-0. On Sunday, we had 2 games. Real Salt Lake versus Sporting KC. Real Salt Lake came out on top 2-1. And then Philadelphia Union took on Nashville FC. After time was up, they were both tied at 1. Philadelphia did, however, win on penalty kicks at 2-0. And then yesterday, New York City FC took on New England Revolution. New England, of course, was the number 1 seed in the East. Both tied 2-2 at the end of regulation. New York City FC advances on penalty kicks 5-3. So on Saturday, we will have Portland taking on Real Salt Lake. Then on Sunday, we will have Philadelphia versus the New York City FC. Winners play each other for the MLS Cup. Exciting. And of course, we'll talk about that whenever we get there. But now we're going to be talking about NCAA football. First, we're just going to kind of break down what happened last week. Again, very exciting week last week. Rivalry week happened. Most teams' big rivalries took place. And so, as far as ranked teams go, Thursday night, Ole Miss beat Mississippi State 31-21. Friday, San Diego State beat Boise State 27-16. Iowa beat Nebraska 28-21. Arkansas beat Mizzou 34-17. Cincinnati beat East Carolina 35-13. Utah beat Colorado 28-13. North Carolina State beat North Carolina 34-30. Georgia beat Georgia Tech 45-0. Baylor beat Texas Tech 27-24. Wake Forest beat Boston College 41-10. Houston beat Connecticut 45-17. North Texas beat the University of Texas in San Antonio 45-23. Alabama beat Auburn 24-22 in 4 overtimes. It's a very fun game to watch. I say fun. It was a very defensive game to watch. So if you like defensive games, that was definitely the game to watch. It was 10-10 at the end, or it was 10-3, like up until the last 2 minutes. And then Alabama was able to score right at the very end. And then they went on to 4 overtimes. So Oregon wins the Civil War against Oregon State 38-29. Michigan State beat Penn State 30-27. Minnesota took down Wisconsin 23-13. LSU beat Texas A&M 27-24. Oklahoma State wins in Bedlam. I just realized I should have waited on this one because those are 2 ranked teams. 37-33. Pittsburgh beats Syracuse 31-14. Clemson beat South Carolina 30-0. Notre Dame beat Stanford 45-14. BYU beat USC 35-31. That should have been it for ranked versus unranked, but no, I accidentally added a ranked versus ranked matchup in there. The only other game that happened was the game. I can't believe I forgot that was their nickname, the game. Very creative between Ohio State and Michigan. Michigan won 42-27. This is like the first time in 10 years, 8 years, that Ohio State has proven to be successful over Michigan. So they just ended an 8-game losing streak to become really high in the rankings. We'll talk about that here in a second. But biggest takeaway from that game, of course, because that was the exciting game. Winner wins the Big Ten East. Hassan Haskins, 28 carries, 169 yards, ran in for 5 touchdowns, pretty much single-handedly beat Ohio State. But, of course, he'll tell you he didn't do it alone. He had a team around him, including his O-line and Cade McNamara. The only other person to score a touchdown was A.J. Henning for Michigan. Several people scored for Ohio State. But yeah, Hassan Haskins decimated that defense, especially towards the end of the game. It's crazy. You knew it was going to him, but they couldn't stop him. It was also a very snowy game, so that was one reason why Cade McNamara was not able to throw the ball that well. The other reason, because he's not that good. Who said that? I didn't say that. I said that. Right now, as far as rankings go, we definitely had some changes happen in the entire list of 25. I will go ahead and start at 25, work my way up to number 1 because that adds some mystery. Coming in at 25, Texas A&M University. 24, the University of Louisiana, the Ragin' Cajuns. I'll just say this is not the only time we will hear their name today. 23, University of Kentucky. 22, Arkansas. 21, Houston. 20, Clemson. 19, South Dakota State University. 18, North Carolina State. 19, San Diego State University. Not South Dakota State. 2 very different teams. 17 is Utah. 16, Wake Forest. 15, Pitt. 14, Oklahoma University. 13, Iowa. 12, BYU. 11, Michigan State. 10, Oregon. 9, Baylor. 8, Ole Miss. 7, Ohio State. 6, Notre Dame. 5, Oklahoma State. 4, Cincinnati. 3, Alabama. 2, Michigan. And number 1 is Georgia. Michigan, of course, was number 5 last week with their win against Ohio State. Did have a very nice jump in the rankings, moving all the way up to 2, which I believe that's where Ohio State was. Yep, they were number 2 and then dropped to number 7. Another big bump would be Oklahoma State. They were number 7 last week. Following that victory against OU, they have bumped up to number 5. Can they be in the Big Ten or the playoffs? We'll see. Actually, chances are really high, and I'll tell you why here in a second. Notre Dame staying still at number 6, still on the outside looking in. But this week is championship week. We have several conference championship games. Starting off with Friday, we have the Pac-12 championship game, Oregon versus Utah. This is a rematch from like 2 weeks ago where Utah beat Oregon pretty handily too. They will be taking each other on. Oregon hoping to get that redemption and maybe possibly get a chance to make it to the college football playoffs. Probably won't happen. I don't see a way that happens, but you got to say you're trying. Saturday is really the day of that we're talking about. Baylor will be taking on Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship game. This is a rematch from earlier in October, where I believe Oklahoma State was victorious. Yes, Oklahoma State was victorious 24-14. Right now, Oklahoma State is the favorite, and they pretty much are playing with we win, we're in the top 4. I'll explain why here in a second. But right now they're on the outside looking in, so they definitely have to win this game to have a chance at a playoff spot. Mountain West, we have Utah State taking on San Diego State. Although I call them South Dakota State all the time, they are San Diego State. They are in the good conference, Mountain West. That's where Wyoming is. That's where I live. So little home field pride there, I guess. Yeah. But San Diego State is favored right now in that game. For the Sun Belt, we have Appalachian State taking on Louisiana. The Ragin' Cajuns. It's not the last time we will say their name tonight. Next, we have the American Athletic Conference. Houston, number 21, is taking on number 4, Cincinnati. Cincinnati wanting to prove that they belong in the top 4. They have to win this game because, of course, if they lose this game, they'll be at 1 loss. Well, yes, they're playing the number 21 ranked team. It's going to hurt them losing right now at this point in the season. This, I don't think, is a rematch. This is not a rematch by the looks of it. Yeah, nope. These two teams have not played each other, although Cincinnati's at 12-0. Houston at 11-1. Their only loss came in the very first game of the season where they lost to Texas Tech 38-21. So this will be Cincinnati's second best opponent that they'll be taking on. Houston, this will be their best opponent they're taking on. In the Big Ten Championship, we have Michigan taking on Iowa. Michigan just had that great game against Ohio State, making their first ever Big Ten championship. Iowa, I don't know if they've been in the Big Ten championship. I imagine they have, especially on that side. Again, two teams who have not played each other. One team is in the Final Four, wanting to stay that way. The other team doesn't really have a chance, but you want to play upset and you want to win that trophy. And then the ACC, we have Pittsburgh taking on Wake Forest. Again, two teams that I don't believe have played each other. Nope, they have not played each other, but didn't have as great of seasons as they were hoping for. It's just funny because they were both really surprise teams, especially coming out of the ACC. Everybody thought it was going to be Clemson, but they definitely deserve to be there. And then we have the number 1 versus the number 3 SEC championship game. Georgia is taking on Alabama. Georgia, the number 1 seed, 12-0, best defense in college football. And then kind of the unknown at quarterback with Stetson Bennett. And then Alabama, team that everyone always expects to be there. Nick Saban does it time and time again. Has a new quarterback this year in Bryce Young. Had a great game in week number 1. Where they played Miami. I was about to say a nobody team, but yeah, still kind of a nobody team. And he demolished them. They've had a very good season. Their only loss was against Texas A&M in a very wild game. Had very 2 close games, LSU and Auburn, the Iron Bowl that just happened. So we'll see if they can solidify the fact that they are a great team. As far as my predictions went, I wasn't horrible. ACC, I said Clemson, Virginia Tech. It was Pittsburgh, Wake Forest, so I was off on both of those. Big 12, I had Oklahoma at TCU. It was Oklahoma State at Baylor, so I had the right states. Big 10, Penn State, Iowa. I had Iowa, but Michigan was the team to make it there. Pac-12, Oregon, UCLA. I had Oregon. I had the U in 4 letters. It's just Utah instead of UCLA. And then the SEC, I had Georgia. Texas A&M was the other team that I had in there, but it is not Texas A&M. It is, in fact, Bama. So Papa's picks, I'm not going to say we're horrible. They definitely not a passing grade. One reason why I don't bet in sports anymore. But still very interesting. As far as predictions, because I love doing predictions, Friday, I do think Oregon will win over Utah. Oklahoma State, I have them beating Baylor. San Diego State, I have them beating Utah State. I have Louisiana beating Appalachian State. Georgia beating Bama. Cincinnati beating Houston. Michigan beating Iowa. And then Pittsburgh beating Wake Forest. So definitely will be a fun game, fun weekend to watch. And then as far as college football playoff indications, of course, we have our top 4: Georgia, Michigan, Alabama, and Cincinnati. All 4 are playing today, or not today, this week. All 4 do have a chance to lose. Actually, no, they don't, because 1 and 3 are playing each other. So it's physically impossible for both of them to lose that game. I do feel that the number 1 overall seed will be Georgia or Alabama, whoever wins that game, which I thought it would be Georgia. So I definitely would say that they would be the number 1 overall seed. As far as number 2, if Michigan wins, Michigan will stay. At number 3, this is where I think this is going to be very interesting. If Oklahoma State wins, I do think they will jump Cincinnati and be at number 3. So then at number 4, you would have Cincinnati, who's currently number 4, Alabama, and then Notre Dame would be the 3 teams out, but fighting for that number 4 spot. In order for Cincinnati to stay in the top 4, they have to destroy Houston. If it is a very close game, I do think the College Football Playoff Committee will give the edge to Alabama. And that's if Alabama barely loses to Georgia. I do need to clarify that real quick. If Georgia beats Alabama by more than, I would say, 17 points, I think Alabama's out. Which is interesting to say because Alabama is at one loss right now. So saying that they could have 2 losses and have a shot, I find very, very hard to believe. Kind of not hypocritical, heretical Heresy, yes. Um, Especially with an undefeated team and a one-loss team behind them. My biggest thing is I don't see a way Cincinnati or Notre Dame can jump Cincinnati for the simple fact that Notre Dame has one loss, and that loss came against Cincinnati. Um, I wouldn't put it past the College Football Playoff Committee, though. They do stupid stuff all the time. Um, and then you'll have those, well, Notre Dame's one loss was against Cincinnati, and they'll be like, oh, we forgot, or whatever they want to say. But I really do not see a way Notre Dame bumps Cincinnati if Cincinnati wins. However, I do think because Alabama's last loss came in an SEC championship game, which is a game that is not guaranteed, Alabama could have very easily not qualified for this game. And so if they barely lose to the number one overall team, I think the College Football Playoff Committee would have a right to keep Alabama in there. However, if Cincinnati destroys Houston, Cincinnati's in. Now, Cincinnati loses against Houston, and it would be against Alabama and Notre Dame. I do think it's going to be the same exact qualifiers as I just said. If Alabama barely loses to Georgia, they're in. If they get blown out, and I would say 14, 17 points kind of qualifies for that blowout in that look, even though it's only a two-score game. But I would say that Notre Dame would get the edge then. However, just like I said earlier, I don't think Cincinnati loses to Houston. I think they will. It'll be a very good game to watch, but I think Houston will have a pretty good win against them. So I would say Georgia at 1, Alabama at 2, Oklahoma State at 3, and then Cincinnati at 4. I can definitely see Oklahoma State and Cincinnati switching. So Cincinnati being at number 3, and then Oklahoma State being at 4. But that's kind of what I think is going to be the final 4. Georgia, Michigan, Oklahoma State, and Cincinnati, which means all 4 of those teams are going to lose, but you got to give it a shot. But that has been our kind of breakdown of the next couple weeks. Next, I want to get into some big news, and that is head coach carousel. I might be asking, what is a head coach carousel? Plain and simple, this is that time of year where coaches get fired. I completely just blanked out his name. Head coach for Florida got fired last week. Gus Malzahn? I know he's a football coach. I'm just going to say Gus Malzahn. Yeah, they let go of their head football coach. Here in the next couple of weeks, a lot of teams will be letting go of their football coaches. And we have seen some teams sign coaches so far. This next month, we'll have a lot more signings, but I'm going to kind of break down who has been signed so far. Virginia Tech Hokies have signed former Penn State defensive coordinator Brent Pry as their new head coach. The LSU Tigers, Ed Orgeron did at the beginning of this year decide to not re-sign with the team, and he was going to retire. I believe he's fully retiring after this year. LSU has signed Notre Dame's Brian Kelly. Okay. They're expected to. I don't think an announcement has finally been made, but they are expected to sign Brian Kelly. Coach Notre Dame forever. It's definitely going to be a little weird seeing him not in a Notre Dame jacket or polo shirt or wherever he decides to wear. Oklahoma head coach Lincoln Riley was talked about a lot this week. There were some talks about going to an SEC school, Florida being one of the big ones. He decided to sign with the University of South Carolina. Southern California. He is a USC Trojan now. The Florida Gators, because they just got rid of their coach. I believe Gus Malzahn. Might be wrong on the name. They are signing the University of Louisiana Raging Cajuns former head coach, Billy Napier. Also, interesting fact, Billy Napier is a former Nick Saban assistant. Nick Saban is pretty much undefeated against all of his former assistants. So very interesting signing right there. Napier also not as well known because he did coach a very small school, but definitely a good signing right there. The Washington Huskies didn't have as great of a year this year. They lost to Montana in week 1. They just signed Fresno State's former head coach, Kalen DeBoer. Which Fresno State, he coached there for a year, I believe. Yep. He former offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach for several schools: Southern Illinois, Eastern Michigan, Fresno State, and then also Indiana. And then in 2020, last year, he signed with Fresno State as their head coach. Which now there is a that's really all as far as signings go. There are several teams that don't have coaches, namely OU, Fresno State, pretty much anyone who just signed a coach, whoever that coach just left, is going to be needing coaches. And that's one cool thing with college. That's really where you see like the unknowns come up. Billy Napier's one, not really an unknown, but not a lot of people know him because he coached smaller schools. So we're going to see what he can do with the big schools. NFL, you really have that room of 32. They'll occasionally get a former college coach or an assistant come out, but it's like as soon as you're a head coach in the NFL, you're set until you decide to retire, unless you decide to take a year off, like Doug Peterson is doing, second greatest coach for the Philadelphia Eagles. But we're not going to talk about that. Yeah, that's really it as far as head coaching signings have gone. Again, we will see here in the next couple of weeks a lot more signings, mainly because you want to have a good coach. Good coaches aren't available for that long. So definitely looking forward to talking about that. Looking forward to next week as we finish up, or as we finish with the championship week, seeing where every team finished off, and then seeing how the actual bowl season is going to go this year. Very excited to see that. I love bowl season. You get those crazy matchups against teams that never play each other. You get some crazy games and crazy plays. Let's not forget the Jadeveon Clowney tackle where he killed the Michigan running back. I don't even know his name. It happened during the Outback bowl season. Fun fact, that play also shouldn't have happened because Michigan did not get a first down, even though they were awarded a first down. They were like this short. But I was not a ref there, so I can't make that play. And I'm glad it happened, because had it not have happened, we wouldn't have saw the best play ever, which was SportsCenter's number one play for almost a year. They actually had to retire the play because they're like, nothing's going to beat it. But he just killed the guy. He dropped the ball. It was a nice hit. Helmet shot up 10 feet in the air. But anyway, definitely look forward to seeing y'all next week as we kind of talk about some of that stuff. MLB free agency is going to be very strong this week too. MLS playoffs is not coming to an end, but this weekend it's the conference championship games, and the week after that will be the actual championship game. So we have a couple more weeks where we will talk about that. But if you like the video, please click that little thumbs up button. Leave a comment. Tell me who's going to be the number one overall seed in the college football playoffs this year. Is Georgia going to beat Alabama and hold on to it? Are we going to see a little bit of a shakeup? Again, I do think if it's either Georgia or Alabama as a lock for that one. I don't see any way any other team does it. But then make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I do this show weekly. It's okay. But we do also have Movie Battleground with Aaron Knoll, our movie debate stuff that Aaron does weekly. Those are all really fun. Plus some interesting matchups coming very soon. And then also follow us on TMG Trivia. I am in the process of that 32-man tournament. We kind of took 2 weeks off just for writing purposes, and getting stuff scheduled was taking longer than I was expecting it to. 2 weeks off, but we should we'll be hitting it strong this next week. In exactly 7 days, we should be seeing David Garcia taking on Zach Shelton. So there will be at least one Star Wars question being asked in that match because David loves Star Wars. And I imagine he'll use that as a strength. And if he gets spinner's choice, he'll pick it up. If Zach gets opponent's choice, I'd be very interested to see if David gives him Star Wars or doesn't give him Star Wars. We will see. And then I do also have coming up soon Hunter Chambliss versus John Marr, and myself taking on Richie Goodacre. Both those matches will be coming out very soon. Very excited for both of those. Also excited for the Zach and David match. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. No, I know. I'm excited for that. But anyway, make sure to follow this channel, TMG Trivia. Have a good one. Make good choices. Wash your hands. Stay safe. Or don't. I don't care. I'm not your dad. But I could be your papa. All right. Bye, everybody.